In the farthest reaches of a galaxy divided by centuries of bloodshed, the stars trembled as an anomaly pierced the dark void of space, a ripple across the fabric of the cosmos, as if the universe itself had taken notice of something unnatural. The Warzone had been a place of constant strife for millennia, where countless alien species clashed in battles that spanned entire star systems, each faction believing itself to be the rightful ruler of the galaxy, their ships massive and formidable, their weapons capable of destroying entire worlds. But amid all the chaos, a single signal arrived, an unassuming frequency buried deep within the comms channels. At first it went unnoticed, drowned out by the static of 1,000 conflicts. But then it grew louder, more insistent, and finally a single alien race of formidable intellect took notice. Their sensors, honed to detect even the faintest signal, parsed the message and froze in disbelief. It was human, a signal that had not been heard in centuries, a species thought lost to the galaxy, a myth among the stars, stories passed down among the alien fleets of a race so ancient, so powerful that none dared to mention them aloud. And yet here it was, the signal now growing clearer as it cut through the cosmic chaos, the sound of a single voice piercing the silence of the Warzone, as though it had always been there. And the message was simple, a declaration of arrival, a statement that could not be ignored. "We have come." Their fleet was inbound. No one knew how they had survived the void, how they had returned, or what manner of technology they possessed. But the Warzone would soon feel the weight of their presence. And as the first wave of human ships entered the system, the aliens watched in silent awe at the unfamiliar vessels that emerged from the nothingness. The ships were unlike any they had ever seen, their sleek black hulls reflecting the starlight in a manner that seemed unnatural. The energy emanating from them pulsed like a heartbeat, a strange rhythm that set the air on edge. The human fleet did not take up formation like any of the alien fleets. Didn't need to. The very sight of their ships was enough to send ripples through the ranks of the enemy ships. Their sensors struggled to comprehend the new technology. They had never encountered anything like it. The human ships were fast beyond belief, far faster than anything the alien fleets could muster, and their maneuverability was a dance of perfection. The Warzone, once known for its brutal and overwhelming force, now seemed fragile and hopelessly slow. As the first wave of human ships began their attack, the alien forces, who had spent years perfecting their strategies and tactics, watched in disbelief as their weapons failed to land on target. Their mighty cannons shot into empty space. Their defensive shields flickered uselessly as the human ships darted through their ranks like phantoms, leaving behind only destruction. Entire enemy warships that once struck terror into the hearts of all who faced them were now reduced to debris, their massive hulls torn apart as though they were paper. Their once proud captains, who had commanded fleets for generations, now watched in stunned silence as their forces crumbled before an enemy they had no hope of understanding, no strategy to counter, and no chance of survival. The alien commanders scrambled to understand what was happening. Their vast fleets of warships were disintegrating before their eyes, and no amount of strategy or firepower could prevent the inevitable. Their advanced technologies, their years of experience, had meant nothing in the face of the human onslaught. As the human ships continued their relentless assault, the aliens could only react in panic. They issued orders for reinforcements to flood the Warzone. Yet even as these new fleets entered the fray, they were met with the same terrifying efficiency of the human attackers. Ships that should have been untouchable were reduced to scrap in moments. Weapons that were supposed to tear through armor like paper bounced off the human vessels without so much as a scratch. The humans did not engage in traditional space combat. There were no grand maneuvers, no heroic dogfights. Their ships did not need to be in the same location as their targets. They did not rely on lines of fire. They had no need for such simple tactics. The humans moved like ghosts between realities, flickering in and out of existence. Their vessels appeared in one spot only to vanish and reappear in another. They struck at will like predators, toying with their prey. With every strike, their technology unfurled in ways the alien fleets could not fathom. Energy weapons that could bend the fabric of space itself obliterated entire groups of enemy ships before they even had time to respond. Their cannons fired once and left nothing but ashes in their wake. Their missiles never missed. They didn't follow a linear path, but rather seemed to lock onto targets with unnatural precision. Even the alien warships that had been thought to be indestructible were rendered helpless with each pulse from the human fleet. The alien forces attempted to adapt. They tried to reorganize their fleets, regrouping their commanders, sending orders to form new strategies to trap the humans in corners or outmaneuver them. But the humans were always one step ahead. They anticipated every move before it was made and countered it effortlessly. Their knowledge of tactics was unrivaled. Their ability to think beyond the constraints of alien understanding was a nightmare. The leaders of the alien factions looked on in disbelief as their most skilled warriors, their most feared captains, were torn apart. In seconds, their fleets shattered in the blink of an eye. They had seen nothing like this before. The once mighty battle lines that stretched across the galaxy now stood broken and scattered. The humans had not just entered the war zone, they had reshaped it in their image. With each passing hour, the human fleet struck fear into the hearts of every alien race in the region. They moved through space like a storm, unstoppable and relentless, leaving nothing but devastation in their wake. The aliens attempted to send out messengers, but no one dared to answer their calls. No one had the strength to even think of stopping them. And as the first wave of human ships began to withdraw, it became clear that the aliens were not dealing with a traditional foe. They were not fighting an army or a fleet. They were fighting an idea, an unstoppable force, an evolution in warfare that no one had ever seen before. They were fighting humanity itself. As the humans continued their devastating advance across the war zone, the alien forces were thrust into a state of desperate confusion. No plan seemed to work. No strategy could contain the unrelenting onslaught. They had hoped their numbers would be enough to outmatch the humans, but each wave of reinforcements only seemed to fuel the inevitable collapse of their forces. Their ships arrived in vast formations meant to overwhelm the humans, but the moment they did, the human fleet tore through them. With chilling precision, entire fleets vanished, as though they never existed. Their once grand ships reduced to twisted metal and fractured hulls in the blink of an eye. No one could comprehend how it was happening. They had never faced such tactics, a new kind of warfare that wasn't just about power or speed, but about anticipation and coordination so precise it was as though the humans could predict their every move. The aliens tried to regroup, sending their most elite warriors and strategists to the front lines, but these too were crushed with ease. The human fleet showed no mercy. Their ships never hesitated. Their strikes were too fast, too accurate. The alien commanders could feel the panic rise in their ranks, the first flickers of doubt beginning to spread even among their most battle-hardened officers. The humans didn't just destroy their ships, they made a statement with every attack. Each alien vessel they reduced to rubble felt like a blow to their very identity. Their sense of superiority shattered beyond repair. They had always seen themselves as the dominant force in the galaxy, but now they were being forced to reckon with the brutal reality of an enemy unlike any they had faced before. It wasn't just their technology that terrified the aliens, it was the humans' ability to think outside the confines of traditional warfare. Where the alien species relied on complex strategies and overwhelming force, the humans had done away with all the old conventions of battle. They fought with ingenuity, precision, and a ruthlessness that seemed to come from a place beyond mere tactics. The alien fleets began to crumble from within, their leadership faltering under the weight of the loss of so many ships, so much power. Whole factions sent distress signals begging for help, but help never came. No reinforcements arrived to save them. The human fleet had already made it clear that no matter the number or the size of their forces, the humans could and would destroy them one by one. No alien race in the war zone could understand how the humans were doing it. The speed with which they struck was like nothing they had ever encountered. Their ability to dismantle their enemies was near supernatural. Whole battle groups had been wiped out before they even had time to fire their weapons. Their technological superiority no longer mattered. Their numerical advantage dissolved into nothingness. In the face of the human onslaught, the once mighty alien fleets were reduced to drifting debris as the human ships continued their sweep across the galaxy, leaving a trail of destruction so thorough that not even the stars themselves seemed to shine as brightly in the wake of such devastation. The humans had not come for a battle, they had come to win, and they were doing so with a terrifying efficiency that left the entire Warzone reeling in shock and awe. The message was clear to every alien species in the galaxy: the humans had arrived, and they would stop at nothing to erase all who stood in their way. As the human fleet pressed onward, the aliens found themselves cornered in ways they could not have foreseen. Their forces scattered, their warships falling apart, and their greatest commanders utterly defeated in a matter of minutes. No counterattack seemed to work. No defensive maneuver could shield them from the human onslaught. It was as if the humans had a sixth sense for battle, knowing exactly how and when to strike in a way that seemed almost supernatural. The alien leadership grew frantic, scrambling for answers, each new strategy resulting in nothing more than further annihilation. Their most advanced fleets, once thought to be invincible, had now become nothing more than target practice for the human ships. Entire formations of the alien warships were torn apart with surgical precision. No resistance was effective enough to slow the humans down. Not even their greatest weapons could find purchase against the human vessels, which continued to move with a speed and unpredictability that defied logic and broke all expectations. The humans did not merely strike their enemies, they seemed to dance around them, anticipating each move with uncanny accuracy. One alien commander, a veteran of countless wars, found himself staring at the wreckage of his once proud fleet, unable to comprehend how it had all fallen apart in such a short amount of time. He tried to send out distress signals, calling for reinforcements from across the galaxy, but there were no responses to his pleas. The rest of the galaxy, it seemed, had either given up or was too afraid to intervene. The human fleet showed no sign of slowing down. Their numbers seemed endless, their resolve unbreakable, and with each new wave of destruction, the morale of the alien forces continued to crumble in real time. Alien soldiers began to abandon their posts, their fear growing as the human ships continued to devastate every fleet. They encountered some of the bravest commanders who had fought to the last in previous wars were now retreating, their once proud ships running in fear of the relentless human advance. Yet even in retreat, the humans continued to chase them down, striking them without mercy. Their ships never faltered, their weapons never missed. It was as if the very concept of escape had been wiped from the minds of the alien forces. Those who managed to flee were left to drift in silence, watching as the human fleet advanced toward the next target without hesitation, as though their purpose was not just victory, but a complete and utter erasure of their enemies. Entire histories, entire civilizations seemed to disintegrate before the eyes of the aliens, the weight of their defeats leaving them paralyzed by the realization that their ancient war machines, their perfected strategies, had all been made obsolete by the humans' unparalleled efficiency. The humans had become an unstoppable juggernaut, moving through the war zone with ruthless precision, leaving no room for any other faction to recover their strength. Even the most hidden and remote regions of the war zone, once considered safe havens for the alien forces, were not beyond the reach of the human fleet. Their ships flickered into existence in these distant corners of space, as though they had always been there, always known where to strike with an accuracy so precise that it seemed to defy reason. The message to the galaxy was growing clearer with every passing moment. Humanity had entered the war zone, and no one was safe, no one would be spared. The humans were here to stay, and they would destroy anyone who dared oppose them. As the human fleet pushed further into the war zone, a crushing realization began to spread through the alien ranks. They had no means of stopping this. The very fabric of their military infrastructure was collapsing in real time, and their most seasoned warlords, who had once crushed entire civilizations without breaking a sweat, found themselves powerless before the human advance. The humans had not only outclassed them technologically, but had also waged a war of attrition, grinding their enemies down with relentless precision. Each battle, once thought to be a minor skirmish, turned into a complete rout, and every fleeting hope of resistance was snuffed out as quickly as it appeared. The alien forces, who had previously believed they held all the cards in the war zone, were now caught in an endless cycle of panic. Their fleet commanders, who had commanded with confidence for centuries, were losing control over their forces. Battle groups, once well coordinated, now disbanded in disarray as entire swaths of their fleets were wiped from existence. Every time they attempted to form a defense or regroup, the human fleet was there, already striking at their weakest points, ensuring that no escape was possible. The alien warships, which had once towered over entire fleets, became nothing more than burning husks floating in the cold dark of space. Even the strategic centers, where alien generals held their command, were annihilated without warning. The humans seemed to have a perfect understanding of every alien strategy, every movement, and every weapon they had come to rely on. Desperate for any kind of advantage, the alien leaders called for reinforcements from distant corners of the galaxy. They dispatched messages to distant allies, hoping that some force, somewhere, could turn the tide in their favor. But their cries for help went unanswered. The galaxy, once so vibrant with the might of countless species, was eerily silent. Fear had already gripped the hearts of the aliens. Those who could flee had long since done so, and those who remained were either too disoriented or too terrified to help. Humanity's influence over the Warzone was rapidly expanding as the fleet continued to expand in numbers and strength. Reports from the few remaining pockets of resistance revealed that the humans were not just a force of destruction. They were a well-oiled machine, each ship operating in perfect synchronization with the next. They seemed to anticipate every move their enemies made, effortlessly adapting to new tactics and overwhelming them with their superior ability to think several steps ahead. Where the alien races relied on brute force and numerical superiority, humanity had mastered the art of speed, surprise, and precision, catching their opponents off guard every single time. The leadership of the alien war zones, once confident in their positions at the top of the galaxy's hierarchy, now began to turn on each other. Blame was cast among the ranks as entire fleets disbanded and alien generals were forced to make scapegoats of one another in a futile attempt to explain the relentless carnage. They were falling apart, both psychologically and militarily. While human ships continued their calculated destruction, the alien forces began to turn inward, consumed by the horrors of their defeat. As the human fleet advanced, leaving an ever-growing path of devastation in its wake, it became clear to the alien factions their time was up. They had not only underestimated the humans, they had completely failed to understand them. The humans had entered the war zone not just as another faction vying for dominance, but as an extinction-level event, a force of nature with a single, unyielding purpose: to eliminate anyone who dared challenge them. As the human fleet carved its way deeper into the heart of the war zone, the alien factions began to realize that their resistance was not merely futile, it was catastrophic. Desperation turned into disbelief as entire star systems fell without a single human casualty. The remnants of what had once been formidable alien forces were scattered in pieces, like so much debris drifting in the void, unable to mount any meaningful opposition. The aliens had long prided themselves on their strength, on the might of their fleets, but they had underestimated humanity's capacity for warfare. Their grand designs for victory had crumbled before a force they could neither comprehend nor counter. The leaders of the remaining alien factions, now clinging to whatever power they could muster, attempted to rally their forces. They offered rewards, promises of glory, and even threatened annihilation for those who would not fight. But the human fleet showed no mercy, no sign of hesitation. Where the aliens expected a retreat or a pause in the conflict, they were instead met with an overwhelming surge of aggression. The humans attacked without warning, their fleets appearing like phantoms in the darkness, striking with such rapidity that no enemy could form any coherent defense. Entire fleets were obliterated before the alien forces could even mount a counterattack. It became increasingly clear that the humans did not just want to win. They were bent on complete and utter destruction. The alien warlords, who had once been feared across the galaxy, found themselves reduced to begging for their lives. Messages were sent to every corner of the galaxy in an attempt to unite against the human threat, but all communication was met with silence. No one would help them. Even their allies had abandoned them, too fearful of the human advance to offer any assistance. What had once been a vast and proud network of galactic empires now lay fractured, each species too fractured and weak to stand together against the unstoppable juggernaut. At the heart of the conflict, the alien leadership tried to negotiate, to beg for mercy, but the humans remained coldly silent. There were no negotiations, no terms. The message was as simple as it was terrifying. Resistance would be erased. Entire fleets of alien ships, once hailed as marvels of military engineering, were torn to shreds in seconds as the human fleet advanced with ruthless efficiency. There was no reprieve, no time to regroup. The alien forces had no answers. There was nothing in their arsenal that could stand against the speed and brutality of humanity's war machine. As the final alien strongholds fell, the vastness of the devastation became evident. Once thriving civilizations were reduced to ash, their worlds burned into nothingness. The humans had obliterated entire star systems, not with blind rage, but with a cold, calculating precision that made it clear they had only one objective in mind: total supremacy. The once mighty fleets of the aliens had been no match for humanity's unforgiving march forward. Entire fleets, even entire species, were wiped out in what seemed like a single coordinated strike. The Warzone, which had been a battleground for eons, now lay in ruin. There was no resistance left, no alien fleet to challenge the humans' rise to power. The survivors, those who had been lucky enough to escape the purge, could only look on in horror as the last remnants of their once great empires were erased. They had no hope of recovery, no hope of survival. The humans had not just won. They had fundamentally reshaped the power structures of the galaxy, leaving no room for any race to challenge them. The galaxy would now be marked by humanity's presence, and its implications stretched far beyond the Warzone. Every race, from the smallest faction to the largest empire, knew that the humans had arrived, and they would not be stopped. The galaxy was forever changed. The humans had declared their rule, and there would be no second chances. In the wake of humanity's brutal conquest, the remnants of the alien empires that once ruled the Warzone were left broken and defeated, their power shattered beyond recognition. There was no hiding from the truth. The human fleet had not only won, they had redefined what it meant to control the galaxy. As the last of the alien ships drifted in the void, broken and lifeless, the rest of the universe began to take notice. Communications between distant star systems, once filled with grand boasts and threats, now echoed with uncertainty and fear. Every race across the galaxy began to whisper the same question: what would the humans do next? The surviving alien leaders, scattered across the galaxy, no longer held the confidence they once had. They now saw themselves not as rulers of the stars, but as survivors clinging to the edge of extinction. Once the proud dominators of vast empires, they now faced a chilling truth. There was no power in the galaxy that could challenge humanity's growing influence. The Warzone had been the crucible in which the humans forged their unstoppable presence, and now that presence was spreading like wildfire, igniting fear and uncertainty wherever it went. Among the few remaining alien leaders, there was a rising desperation. Some began to frantically send out messages, attempting to forge new alliances in the hopes of standing against the human tide. Yet every attempt was met with silence, as if the rest of the galaxy had already accepted the inevitability of humanity's dominance. Old alliances that had once stood firm now crumbled. Races that had been proud, fiercely independent, and resistant to the idea of unity with others were now too frightened to act. The thought of confronting humanity head-on was laughable. There was no chance, no hope. The humans had already proven that. The human fleet, meanwhile, moved from system to system, quietly but steadily expanding their influence. They did not need to engage in battles any longer. The mere presence of their ships was enough to ensure that the galaxy would bend to their will. Where alien leaders once imposed taxes and tribute, now they were forced to offer terms of surrender and submission. The humans, showing no mercy, imposed their rule wherever they went, dismantling the remnants of alien military forces and establishing control over whatever territories they passed through. Entire sectors of space that had once been contested were now under human dominion, with no resistance in sight. The survivors, those few alien races still trying to rebuild or reorganize, understood that they were living on borrowed time. The humans had proven their supremacy, and it was only a matter of time before the rest of the galaxy would fall in line. Diplomacy, alliances, and military resistance had all failed. The only path forward was submission, and yet even in their surrender, the alien races could not shake the feeling that something darker was looming. For while the humans showed no immediate sign of exterminating entire species, there was an undeniable fear that, someday, humanity would finish what they had started. The galaxy had witnessed the destruction of the Warzone in mere moments. What would prevent humanity from turning its attention to every corner of the galaxy? Fear rippled through the remaining alien civilizations. Even in their despair, they feared not only for their own survival, but for the very future of the galaxy itself. Were the humans truly unstoppable, or had they merely tasted the beginning of their conquest? Would they stop once the Warzone was fully under their control, or would they set their sights on greater expanses, more stars to conquer? No one knew, and that uncertainty was perhaps the most terrifying thing of all. As the human fleet advanced toward the next system, their mission was clear: complete dominance. The Warzone was only the beginning. The galaxy had been divided for eons by conflict, by empires clashing and civilizations rising and falling. But now, one species had emerged from the chaos, unstoppable and unyielding. The rest of the universe could only tremble as they awaited their turn to face the inevitability of humanity's rise. The galaxy, once a vast and unpredictable expanse of empires, allegiances, and conflict, now found itself gripped by the iron fist of humanity's unyielding will. As the human fleet moved ever forward, their presence cast a shadow over the stars themselves. What had once been a realm of infinite possibilities now seemed to be shrinking under the weight of their dominance. Every system they conquered, every world they touched, became a part of the ever-expanding human empire. The very fabric of the galaxy, once held together by fragile alliances and shifting powers, was now woven into a new reality where humanity's laws, their order, reigned supreme. The surviving alien races, those who had managed to escape the initial wave of destruction, had no recourse but to submit. Desperation had turned to resignation. Their fleets had been annihilated, their planets reduced to rubble, and their cultures erased with surgical precision. The idea of rebellion seemed laughable now. What could they possibly do to resist? The humans had shown themselves to be a force unlike any other, a species that had entered the galactic stage not to negotiate, not to conquer, but to reshape everything. Where the alien forces had relied on size, numbers, and brute force, the humans had used something far more terrifying: an unrelenting mind, capable of seeing beyond the battlefield and calculating moves in ways the galaxy had never seen before. Now, as the human fleet grew ever larger, absorbing conquered systems and territories into its fold, the very concept of war had changed. There was no longer any need for large-scale battles, for grand conflicts. The galaxy had learned that the mere threat of human power was enough to bring entire star systems to heel. No one dared challenge them directly. No one was foolish enough to think they stood a chance. The few remaining pockets of resistance were snuffed out swiftly, like embers underfoot, until there was nothing left but the cold silence of submission. The human fleet, now a vast network of ships and colonies, began to stretch beyond the Warzone, their influence reaching into distant sectors. They did not need to wipe out entire species to ensure their supremacy. They only needed to show up. The galaxy understood that fighting back would be futile, so instead they began to adjust, to bow before the inevitable. Alien worlds, once proud and independent, began to fall in line. Entire populations that once scorned humanity were now working alongside them, not out of loyalty, but out of necessity. The humans had become the new center of the universe, and no one dared to challenge them. Yet, even as the last remnants of resistance were crushed, something curious began to happen. Some alien races, while acknowledging humanity's power, began to wonder what life would be like under their rule. The brutal conquest had shattered many, but there were those who saw the efficiency of the human order and wondered if they could adapt to it. Humanity, though feared, began to draw a kind of respect. Those who had once viewed humans as primitive, savage, or inferior were now forced to reconsider. In the ashes of their defeat, they saw the potential for something greater, an era of stability, of control, of peace, perhaps, albeit one built on the foundation of absolute authority. And yet there was no mistaking the truth. Humanity's rise had come at an unimaginable cost. The galaxy would never be the same again. Civilizations had been destroyed, histories erased, and worlds lost forever. But in the end, the galaxy now belonged to the humans, and there was nothing left to contest their rule. They had proven that no force, no power, no alliance could stand against them. The stars were theirs. The galaxy was theirs. The human fleet had not just entered the Warzone. They had defined its future, one that would be written in their image. And no one, no matter how great their legacy, would ever be able to rewrite it.